BBC Radio Sheffield, coming up to 12 minutes past 7. Sport Heaven. For the first part of the show, we're going to be talking all about the Sheffield Steel Kings. The para ice hockey team and the club's development side, the Steel Stings, have both qualified for the British para ice hockey playoffs this coming weekend. And joining us in the studio now is the Steel Kings player coach and chairman, Jake Oakley. Jake, thanks for joining us. Just fill us in. How are the team getting on?
They're doing great. COVID obviously set us back a little while, but we've kind of managed to rebuild and the Kings finished second in the league, and the Stings, they've just qualified for the playoffs as well, so they got the 4th place spot. So for I think the first time in history, 2 teams from the same organisation are going to go to the playoffs and compete for more silverware.
You know, when people talk about the impact of COVID on sport, it does feel a little bit, to us who are sort of not involved day to day with teams, that feels like such a long time ago now. Since like fans started coming back into stadiums and watching their teams play again, it kind of feels like a lot of us just moved on from that. But I suspect the impact for a lot of local teams is still ongoing, isn't it?
Well, it is really, because so back in 2019, the Kings won both the league and the playoffs, and we were never able to kind of keep that momentum going. And then we had the plan to launch our B team then, which is our Stings. That's our play on the words there. But COVID obviously took the British Para Ice Hockey League out for 2 seasons. So we didn't get to launch our development squad. We kind of lost players along the way, just because obviously COVID made people intimidated, and new things cropped up, lives changed, obviously, naturally. And so it was a bit of a concerning time at the very start of the season. We weren't sure whether we were going to be able to actually even launch the second team. But a strange thing happened as well, is that once people realised sport was back and they kind of had realised what they'd missed, we seemed to actually get an influx of players. So the Stings kind of were fine in the end, and we managed to be able to get both teams through the season, and it's been very successful, of course. I mean, we haven't won any silverware yet, but in terms of actually the growth of the sport, I'm very pleased.
And just how proud are you of the team for the success that you're having, you continue to have, and as you say, you still want to win the silverware, but both teams qualifying for the upcoming playoffs. It sounds like the team is in a really good place in terms of competing as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm always very proud of them anyway, to be honest. We work very hard. We have people from all sorts of different backgrounds, things like that, and everybody has their own sort of challenges and things that that going on in their own lives, but they come together and everybody buys into the sort of the family ethos. It sounds very cheesy when you talk about it, but from day one we've always tried to have this kind of family, we are it together kind of mentality. And even though we now have 2 teams, it's all about you're all Steel Kings. You're just sort of separated by development and sort of senior team. And the plan is the development players get to the senior squad when they've built up their skills. So it's I'm always very proud, and I'm always very kind of pleased to see more and more people coming into the sport and kind of loving it, and as much as I do.
Well, Jake, I've talked to a couple of Steel Kings players in the last, I'd say probably like 4 or 5 months, and they all spoke about what you've been saying there, that this is a really good feeling about the team. They're really passionate about it. They enjoy being part of the team. What has created that chemistry, do you think? What has created that culture that makes people want to play and then enjoy themselves playing for the teams?
It's a bit of everything, to be honest, because we've always had this ethos from day one. We in the early days, we were very much the underdogs. We were we still are the newest team that kind of joined the league. We've built up. We've never seen ourselves as a new team. We've always kind of tried to treat ourselves as a very professional team. Kind of always pushing things, social media. We try and do everything we can to kind of push the sport and get more players involved and things like that. And people buy into that. They kind of see the work ethic, and then that makes them buy in and go, well, actually, I want to be part. It's not just like a lazy club, if that makes sense. It's about people kind of respect what we do sort of behind the scenes, myself and some of the other committee members, things like that, and just we've got a great group of off-ice volunteers that just sort of give up hours of their time to help us as well, and people respect that and they want a piece of it. They like what we do, and then there's the sport side of it as well, of course. And it's this sport that's incredibly welcoming to people from all backgrounds. It doesn't matter sort of like your gender, your ethnicity, and none of that matters. It doesn't even matter about your disability actually, because it's an inclusive sport. So it's built around people with lower body disabilities and impairments, but there's actually nothing stopping from anybody wanting to come down and actually give the sport a go. So it makes this huge kind of big, amazing dysfunctional type family that that you wouldn't get these normal people sort of mixing and integrating in the way that we do, and it just sort of breaks down so many barriers, and people just sort of they love it. It's great. And then there's the physicality side of it as well, where it's a contact sport and people love to hit each other and play physical, and it's just got a bit of everything. It's incredible.
And I think that's what's great about grassroots sport and stuff like this, because it just brings together a whole bunch of people around a common interest that they can all share.
Definitely.
They can all have a passion for, but that they otherwise probably wouldn't come together without sort of that glue, but they do, and then they end up getting on great.
Well, that's it, exactly. And yeah, I mean, the changing room there can be some dark humour in there at times, but that's great as well, because people just sort of accept each other. It really is amazing, and it's a shame really that the sport isn't greater known, and that's kind of again is part of our mission here in Sheffield, but trying to get the word out wider, because it's this amazing sport that so few people actually know about, and especially if people are out there with low body disabilities and impairments that kind of think, well, actually, I'm missing out on something. Well, there's a good chance para ice hockey is the thing you're missing out on that you don't know about, and it's amazing how many people come down, and even when they're kind of falling all over the place when they're first starting out, because it's a difficult sport, but the smile on their face is incredible. It absolutely lights up a room, and that's what we love to see.
Well, sell the sport then. If people are listening to this and they think, do you know what, I quite like the idea of this, but I need a bit more information. How do you sell this sport to them? Go and give it a try. This is what it is. This is why it might appeal for you.
Well, I suppose in a nutshell, if people are out there and they do have a lower body disability, and it often means that they kind of maybe feel a bit isolated, a bit trapped, they feel like they're maybe made of glass. And this is the thing, it's a physical contact sport, and actually when you sort of see the hits that go in on each other and things like that, but people bounce, it's this misconception about people with disabilities, like they must be broken in some way, and it's not like that at all. They're absolutely really ready to kind of go out and and play a physical sport, and they love getting that kind of that side back that they might have lost through an injury or something like that. So, and the kind of camaraderie and the family, from sort of an isolation point of view, all of a sudden there's a huge group of people that are suddenly all in your corner. They don't know you, but they're on your side suddenly, and they love it. It's great. And you have to work hard as well. It doesn't come easy. It's not just one of those sports that you get in, and there's very few people that get in a sledge and are just instantly good. You have to put the work in, and there's something very rewarding about that as well, which it's that kind of blood, sweat, tears type of thing, but you appreciate it all the more because of it as well.
We're speaking to Jake Oakley, who is the Steel Kings player and coach, para ice hockey team. The club's development side, the Steel Kings, have qualified for the playoffs along with the Steel Kings, and we're going to talk a bit about that in a few moments. It is BBC Radio Sheffield, and you're listening to Sport Heaven. Tonight, we are talking about the Sheffield Steel Kings and the development club, the Steel Stings, as well, with player, coach and chairman Jake Oakley. We mentioned that the playoffs are coming up, and Jake, what do the playoffs entail at Widnes this weekend? What happens on a playoff weekend?
So top 4 teams that finish the league will get to go to playoff weekend, and that's in Widnes this year. It's basically a first versus fourth, second versus third, to see who makes it through to the gold medal game, and has to settle for a bronze medal game basically on the Sunday. So yeah, it literally is a kind of winner take all kind of format. There's going to be some really tough but really good games, and if anybody is in the area of Widnes for some reason, come and check us out.
Well, it is the place to be, Widnes.
I know, right?
But when you actually think about it, given all of the delays and everything like that, and getting back to it now, I mean, how good would it be to go and retain the playoff trophy from 2019?
I mean, it's what we're all about, really. That we develop players to get to a point where we can be very competitive, and as I said earlier, we are the newest team in the league still. That's the strange thing, but we've become the biggest because of our kind of never-ending drive for growth and kind of bringing the next people in to kind of keep going. And so yeah, it's always nice when you can mark success with silverware, because it literally puts a stamp on it, but it isn't all about that. But we don't play a big season. There's a lot of kind of just training that goes on. We try to fill those with games, things like that, but it is always nice when you can kind of go, well, this is the reward for all the hard work we put in.
And, how much do you fancy your chances? I think you're right in saying you finished second in the league. So that would suggest you've got a reasonable chance.
Reasonable chance. We dipped out to Cardiff, who won the league this year, and they beat us twice, unfortunately, but just by a single goal. Those games, Cardiff's team this year have really found a new level. They've got an old player that came back, and he's incredible. And it was both games real war type thing. It could have gone either way, but it just didn't go our way. That's just one of those things. It's that sport. But I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing that matchup. We've got to get through Manchester first on the Saturday. It'll be our development side, the Stings, that'll play Cardiff. So that'll be a very tough game for them. But it's all about learning for them, and we'll just have to do what we can do.
And when you mention, it's Cardiff and Manchester, it does feel. Are we talking about the hotbeds of sort of anything to do with ice hockey, really? Because this is when you think of the elite league, they're that's the cities you think of as well, doesn't it? Does there tend to be that correlation between the teams that have got like the Steelers and the Devils and stuff like that have a good following in terms of other sports, in terms of para ice hockey and stuff like that?
There is a certain correlation. Obviously, the rinks help and things like that, but para ice hockey is actually a very small sport, and actually it would be nice to have more involvement from people like the Steelers or the Cardiff Devils, in that case, or Manchester Storm for Manchester. It would be nice to kind of see those partnerships coming through. Unfortunately, ice hockey overall is a minority sport, and then we are the minority sport within that minority sport, so it does make it difficult. But we're always happy to kind of work with anybody who is prepared to, and I actually do some work with the Steelers myself. Anyway, I'm one of the match night officials, so so I do help there as well. So they get an earful of the Steel Kings, whether they like it or not at times.
I wanted to ask you as well, because there'll be people listening to this who might have a reasonable idea of what the sport is, but when you mention things like sledge and having to get on that to play, and they might think, oh, that's interesting, but I'm not. They might not have seen it before. They might not picture how they actually compete on the ice. So can you just sort of talk us through the players? Do they sort of sit on a sledge? How do they get about the ice? What is kind of like the process of playing the sport?
So yeah, it's basically as you've kind of described, but it's not a sledge like you would go out sledging when it snows. It's a metal frame. There's two ice hockey kind of blades underneath. Where you would sit. You sit in like a black plastic bucket seat, and you ratchet yourself in, basically straps that hold you in tight. And the idea is that sledge becomes your lower body, and you kind of control it from sort of your core. And if you can use your legs, you can still kind of use the leg muscles to kind of help weave and things like that. But it's all very much upper body. It kind of takes away that lower body element, which is why it's a sport for everybody. Basically, as long as you can kind of push with your upper body, you got good grip. You basically hold two sticks. That helps propel you across the ice. But you do everything in your upper body. So you've got two sticks. You can kind of pass, shoot with both hands. It's, like I say, it's very kind of tough on your shoulders and things like that. But it's really physical. But I say it's something really good about it as well.
And I think a good way always to find out a bit more information about a team and to try and get in touch if you are interested is, of course, through social media. So if people do want to check out the Steel Kings and the Steel Stings, where can they go on social media to get more info?
So social media is one of our big things that we always try to kind of push. People can always follow us on Facebook. That's one of our big ones. But we are also on Twitter, Instagram. We've recently joined TikTok as well, if people want to sort of see videos as well there. Basically check us out. We do have a website, but admittedly it needs updating. So maybe the others, social media are the better platforms. But no, check us out, because I think people will be really surprised. And of course, if anybody knows anybody that has a disability like that or thinks might enjoy this sport, get in touch, drop us an email. We'd love to from you.
Well, listen, Jay, all the best for this weekend. Hope you do it. Go and win the playoffs this weekend. That is Jake Oakley, who is the Steel Kings player, coach and chairman. Great to have him with us here on Sport Heaven.